There we go. Hi there. My name's Pete Hammond, and I'm going to moderate today. Do y'all love A Man Called Otto? All right. Nice full house here. Without further ado, let me introduce you to some great people involved with this movie. First off, he played young Otto, Truman Hanks. She played Marisol, Mariana Treviño. Screenwriter, David Magee.
Yeah.
Producer and songwriter, Rita. Producer and actor, Tom Hanks. Director, Marc Forster. All right. All right, look at this house here. Congratulations. We've got everybody here but Schmegel. This is
Schmegel the cat.
Schmegel the cat, yeah. Congratulations on this movie. I was just telling you out there, Rita, this is the kind of movie you don't see much anymore, and it is so refreshing, I think, to see this out here with a packed house, watching it together in the theater again. So let me ask you, Rita and Tom, as producers here, as well as songwriter, congratulations. Oscar shortlisted song. So great, and Tom, great performance. Why did you decide to do this movie? It was a very successful Swedish film, A Man Called Ova, with Oscar nominated for foreign film at the time and different things. Why did you decide to do this English language remake?
Well, hi Pete, thank you so much for having us, by the way, and thank you all for coming today on a Saturday. Really appreciate it. Well, when I saw it, it was in ye olde days when they used to send out the screeners, and the Academy sent out the foreign film screeners, and one of them was A Man Called Ova. And I thought, we read the synopsis, we said, that sounds pretty good. We didn't know it was a big hit in Sweden or anything, and we put it on. And based on the book of Frederick Backman, A Man Called Ova, which we also didn't know at that point, it was something that was visceral, it was palpable. Watching it, I felt that this was a movie about something, and that it was still able to have all those elements we love in movies, that you could laugh, that you could cry, that you could feel something. But also Tom and I have been having discussions over the years about comedies, and that he had gotten his start in comedy, and I always asked him, why aren't you doing more of that, or why aren't you looking for that? But he says that he aged out of romantic comedy, which I don't know. I think there's room for romantic comedy, but and that the funny picture wasn't really something that he was looking to do, because he still wanted to be challenged by the material, that even if it was a comedy, that there would be something to it that was more than that. So we're watching it, about 20 minutes in, I get this like pit in my stomach, and a gulp, like, oh my God, this is fantastic. It's about so much. And I looked at Tom and I was like, I got to get the rights to this, and you got to play this character. And we're in the middle of the movie, we're watching it, and he doesn't say anything. But he doesn't say no. And we had a very interesting discussion after that. The next day, I made a call to find out who had the rights to it, and it was held by the Swedish studio, SF Studios. And we called, and it just so happened that the gentleman who had the rights for the studio, Frederick Wickstrom Nicostro, my producing partner, he happened to be in LA and was available to take a meeting. And so he had a call that said basically, we want to make this movie and Tom Hanks wants to star in it. And he played it so cool when he came to the office, like, oh, interesting, okay, yeah, let me think about that. And that's how we ended up. But it's really, I have to credit not only, oh, this just in. Anyway, sorry about that. I have to really credit Frederick Backman, the author of the novel, because he really gave it what the stories were, why there was a Swedish film, and the Swedish film is fantastic also. And then, of course, Dave Magee is our screenwriter, and this guy's our star. And of course, you're going to talk to Mark and learn more about all of this.
You know, there's a thing that comes on, please silence your phones.
You know it's spam.
Tom.
You know it's spam.
Tom, this is, you know, you have done so much great comedy and things. I would call this a dramedy in many ways. It's got all those elements to it. But I look at your filmography of recent years too, and you haven't done these big screen comedies that you sort of used to do. This is a great return, I thought, to that and to this kind of a movie for you. And it's a great character too. I can see why you said yes in 20 minutes. But tell us why you think this was a great character.
Well, the theme of a movie has to have enough wherewithal to withstand the making of a movie about it. And what I got certainly from the original film and then all the work we did to it, was I thought that if we could examine a man's loss of his faith in tomorrow, that's really what this comes down to for me. A guy who said, he lost faith in everybody. His friends in the neighborhood itself. He was literally relying on only himself in order to propel the goodwill of his world. He goes out on these very specific his morning routines every day. He walks his rounds. Because if he doesn't do it, nobody else will do it. He has no faith in anybody else in order to do it. And oddly, you've seen the film, so you see, the depths to which he is willing to demonstrate this loss of hope for the future. And Dave and Mark can speak to more particular aspects of Swedish society in which there is a system, socialized medicine and particular housing and mandatory retirement ages, what have you. That's a system that I think Uwe could rail against. Right? Well, we have traits in the United States that you can rail against, but compounded, I think, along with the fact that he belongs to nothing greater of himself anymore. That's what I thought Otto was dealing with. And that to me is a crisis of faith and hope, and that's a theme that is worthy of having a movie made about.
Yeah, and you've done, it's funny, in Pittsburgh, this was shot in Pittsburgh, so was Mr. Rogers' movie that you did as well. It seems to be a good luck city for Tom Hanks.
Well, it is where the Allegheny and the Monongahela meet in mighty Ohio. Right? City of steel. It's a great town, and I gotta say, they have a great infrastructure there in order to make films.
Yeah. Mark, talk about this coming into this movie. You have worked with David Magee, your screenwriter here, before on Finding Neverland, which was a terrific film. And so this is a bit of a reunion with the writer. So why did you want to do this movie at this time in your career?
I saw the Swedish film, as Rita mentioned, and read the book as well, and I felt, we're living in times where, everybody's very divided. I think here there's a community coming together that brings, this film brings a community back together, which I think is a theme that was very important to me. And a lot, Tom already spoke about the character of Otto, and collaborating obviously with this entire group here, and with a couple of people who are not here today. But it was just David and I worked on Finding Neverland together, and it was one of the just a lovely and great experience, and wanted to work since then together again. And this was another experience, and I must say, when David delivered the first draft of the script, we all were just in awe and just loved it, and it was very very just beautiful.
It was an unusual experience to have a script that was a first draft that came to us that we all went, oh my gosh, we love this.
He had named it, the working title was World War Otto, and I thought that was
That's it. David Magee, you're having a hell of a year. He wrote a similar movie that's you can see on Netflix called Lady Chatterley's Lover. So you're not personal. So talk about maybe the pressure of taking a movie that was beloved, a book that was a 45-week bestseller, all of that, and making it your own, and making it something, you know, for audiences outside of Sweden, for instance?
Well, I think on one hand, it puts pressure on you to know that so many people have already experienced it on some level, but there's a reason that so many people have looked at it, because there's something in there that everyone recognizes and identifies. And for me, the character of Otto is someone. This happened on the set. We would have everyone from the crew come up and go, you know, my uncle is just like that, or I have a cousin just like that, or it reminds me of my neighbor across the street. We all recognized in that character something. And to me, as soon as I saw the Swedish film, just like they did, I didn't have the sense to get the rights. And then I read the book and I loved it. I thought it was wonderful, and I recognized that character. And I said to you in the past that it was my father that I recognized that in, because there comes a point in life where, you know, you start losing things, and you start finding, you know, challenges to get through the next day, you know, and that kind of Midwestern stoicism and everything is very familiar to me. So I identified with it right away, and I had two sources to draw from: a beautiful film and the novel on which it was based, and you know, so in that way, it was a gift.
Yeah.
I really felt lucky.
Was there any one thing that you had to make a major change on in your mind, you know, to make it work?
Well, there were a lot of. Tom brought up socialized medicine in Sweden, and that becomes kind of a machine that moves you on out of this living into assisted living, and the health, that's all connected. And so that was what Frederick Bachman was writing about. And for me, it was about the indifference of our society in America toward older people and their plights and everything. So it kind of took on that faceless corporate, well, you're done, let's get you out of here, let's find a way to move you on. So we kind of invented the story of Di and America, and the son who's off in Japan, and the kind of the indifference of, well, just, you know, power of attorney, get him out of there, move it along. That was one of the big things that we had to solve in order to make this work in an American setting. But once we were in Pittsburgh, they actually had that housing in Pittsburgh. I mean, that looks virtually identical to what's described in the book. So there was kind of a wonderful, it just seemed like we found the right place for it.
Yeah, shout out to your production designer.
Yes, please, Barbara Ling. She was incredible, yes. And she won the Academy Award for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And I happened to meet her at one of those pre-Oscar parties, and when she was nominated, and I quizzed her because I grew up in Hollywood, California, and I'm like, how did you do that? There were no special effects. She did everything so realistically, and I was blown away by what she did. And she said all of the signage that they got was original. There was one place on Hollywood Boulevard that would not allow her to change the signage, so they just put a big bus in front of it. But she
remember that scene.
Take that, hustler store.
And I must say, you know, Barbara, we didn't find the right location. We were looking, and she said, just went one night, she said, look, I found something, Mark, and she went on Google Earth and literally looked for that cul-de-sac, and that's how she found it. And the next morning, we just drove there, and it was the perfect spot.
I love it. Mariana Treviño, can you move it This character, you're so good, and it's such a firecracker. She's so great. She just will not take no for an answer. I mean, talk about working with this guy and creating this character that just pops, you know?
Thank you for watching our film. Thank you for this moment. It's always a pleasure to listen to your answers. I feel so, this is wonderful. So, what was the question again?
Just talk. Just tell us what you're talking.
No, it was really so wonderful in so many levels. And as time goes by and we talk about the film and we sit down and we have these conversations, and I got the opportunity to see the whole ensemble of everybody's work, it just, things keep, the layerings keep, you know, coming deeper. And as you said, David, with your writing, and with everybody's work and Marc's work, because he is like he gathered us around like this fire. He started like his intuition kind of started gathering us around this wonderful story that is archetypical of, you know, the human condition, you know, the wavering between our pains and coming to terms with them, and finding joy through coming to terms with that. And I loved as well, it was very inspiring to me to find this element of how the nostalgia of this love in Otto's life becomes activated, and he realizes that this is what's going to continue, you know, that the love can be born each time and again because we have it. And the activation of that and just connecting with the whole community and realizing that we need each other's love kind of to advance in life and in our own inner struggles was just a beautiful, it was a beautiful human theme. So,
and what about working with Tom in this?
Oh no, working with Tom, with Marc, have been, can you imagine, I mean, I can't stress enough the blessing that this has been, and I am so eternally grateful for this, because I can now retire like in peace. No, hopefully that won't happen, but no, it really, working with this Marc and Tom, they were our pillars. Absolutely.
Tell how lucky and blessed we were.
Okay, so when we were doing the casting process of the film, Francine Maisler, our amazing casting director, and her associate Molly were incredible. They would send us tapes and we would view everything, and Marc and I always agreed on the casting. And we were still looking for Marcel, and this videotape comes in, an iPhone or iPad audition, and it's this actress who is doing it in her hotel room in some city, I didn't know where, but she was creating the entire characters. Are there actors in here tonight?
Yes.
Okay? Okay. It's so incredible. It's so inspiring because she brought to the audition her character in full, and she created Tommy, who was standing there, and she created Otto, who was standing there, and you believed every minute, every word that came out of her mouth. She improvised, talking to her husband, talking to her, putting her foot in, all of that. It was so extraordinary. We got so lucky. I took the computer over to Tom, and I'm like, I think you need to see this. And he's like,
we looked at it and we said, well, let's get her.
And Marc, you tell how the audition came to you.
Francine and Molly, who the casting director, said you should check out this actress, and I opened my laptop and there was just one tape, and it says one audition. I said, where are the others? I said, no, just watch her. Just watch her. I'm watching it, and at first I'm a little confused because normally actors, they have someone else to read with for the other lines. And there was no one else to read with. And I was like, what? Is she talking? Is she doing other lines as well? What's going on here? And she's all handheld, by the way, with the iPhone in front of her like this, talking straight into the lens. And I was like, and then in the middle of it, I was just like, I bought it and I said, oh my God, this is genius. I mean, she's so brilliant.
She made us cry.
Yeah, I got so emotional watching it.
That was it.
And then we didn't see anybody else.
No.
And I said, I'm sold.
I love it. I've probably got another actor here on the panel too. I believe you know him, your youngest son, and he is the only Hanks that isn't an actor, or wasn't. He certainly is now. But can you talk about that casting and how that came about? Were you looking? I mean, he looks just like you at a younger age.
Well, his iPhone audition was so great. you guys should
Well,
talk.
I will tell you that Marc and Al started and Marc and finished it. But we were having a pre-production meeting, and Mark said, gosh, you know, it's always so difficult when you're casting a person to play the younger person of somebody that's very well known. I said, yeah, it's so true. He says, because they never look like the people. And I said, yeah, and it's too bad that Colin is too old, because our son is an actor, and because he looks a lot like Tom. And I said, and Chet would be great too, but he's also too old for the part. And it's too bad because Truman is the one that kind of people say looks the most like Tom, but he's not an actor. And Mark says, oh, let me see a picture. Show him the picture, and he's like, oh no, this is like, they're like Tom. Has he ever acted? I'm like, school plays, you know, that kind of stuff. And Mark then said, well, what does he do? And I said, he wants to be a cinematographer, and he has been doing that. And Mark then said, well, I think I should just meet with him. Can I meet with him? And I'm like, I'm staying out. Now I'm out. Because it's like, no, this is not going to be good. And he said, let me just go to New York and meet with him. And he did, and then what happened?
Yeah, I mean, both, you know, the parents said he probably won't do it. But I said, let's just meet with him, because he really, truly, you know, I felt it was young Tom. And Truman was very gracious that he did meet with me, and we had a lovely coffee. He first said, actually, don't tell you the story.
There happened to be another filmmaker named Mark at the hotel where we were meeting, and I sat down and I got about 10 minutes into a conversation with him before I
And I was sitting there, I was looking over, and I said, it looks like Truman. He was conversation with this other guy. That was actually with Renee, our executive producer. And then we were sitting there, and I said, and then at one point, Truman felt like he's not at the right table. Right?
Yeah, someone else came down and was like, oh, so how do you two know each other? I was like, I don't. And I was like, wait, why are you here then? I'm supposed to be with Mark. I don't know. And then I looked behind me and I was like, okay, yes, it is indeed the bald Swiss man.
But anyway, I felt, you know, I felt very lucky that Truman said yes, thank you so much, and because he's really terrific in the movie, and I think it takes a lot of guts to follow the footsteps of one of the great performers of our time.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, tell him how impressed you are with me, son. How flirtatious I am around the house.
I don't know, me and my siblings, we've had a lot of experience imitating him. The TV doesn't work or something like that.
Well, what was it like, Truman, with Rachel Keller, who I thought was terrific, as Sonia? She's not here today, but shout out to her. And they're very touching scenes, too, as we watch that whole thing. And flashbacks can be really tricky in movies, and I thought these worked seamlessly in this film.
Yeah, well, I will say Rachel was definitely like the person that helped the most, because, you know, she's like a real actor, you know. I'm a, you know, proud dues-paying member of Local 600, which is the camera union. And so, but like as soon as Mark called action, you know, she's there. And I was like, oh, okay, no, we're actually in this scene together. And she's just the loveliest person and was super helpful. Just because I had, you know, however many months just to be nervous about, like, oh my God, lines and like hit my mark. And then like a few days before, we just read scenes together, and I was like, oh, okay, she's like the loveliest person. And it was like, oh, okay, this is actually gonna be okay. And plus, Mark was the best on set too, because he was, you know, very accommodating to let me mess up like the lines. You know, I've been on the crew a million times, and there's always a moment where it's like, okay, come on, the entire crew knows that it's build instead of make. Like, can you just say build instead of make this one time? And they're like, all right, take 13, and we're like, oh, I'll make you one. Oh, sorry guys, can we like? So like, I'll never have a moment like that again on set. Acting is a weird job.
It's great, and I hear you're going to make another movie with the other Mark now, too. That is really exciting stuff. Okay, I have to ask Tom Hanks here what it's like working with a cat. I know what working with dogs can be a little easier.
Done that, yeah.
A cat, often, you know, the Coen brothers did a movie with a cat, and they had 6 different cats for different things. Running cat, this cat, that cat. What was
A cat. We had a cat, Schmegel. That was it. Cats do not care about you. Dogs will just be looking at the trainer over your shoulder like this until they are told. The trainer will say bond, and then the dog will look at you for a second and look back at the trainer, and that's where every shot on the movie goes for as long as the cats sit there like this. And every now and again they'll give you this look, not by any coaching, they'll just naturally just kind of look at you like do what they want to do. But Schmegel was a gem.
Schmegel had his own green screen day.
He did, yes.
Just to get certain reactions from him.
There's all you can do is hope that cat likes to be held by you. And eventually Schmegel and I got along fine.
There was one cool thing about it. We had obviously animal trainers on the set, and there was the scene where Cameron, Jimmy, the neighbor, brings over the cat and says basically, he's all yours now. And the box was covered up like this, and then the next scene was Otto has to take the cat to the cemetery. And we said, well, that wouldn't really work. Like, you can't put a cat in a box and just take him in a car somewhere, you know? He's got to be in a proper, he can't be closed up like that. So the trainers came up with the idea to put the hole in the top of the box, and that ended up being such a sweet moment.
It's in all the commercial.
Yes, his head through. And
no cats were forced to do anything they in the course of making this film. Did that little thing go by on the closed credits? By the Humane Society, this cat got to do any damn thing it wanted.
The good thing about Schmegel is that he really performed because we used very little CGI.
Yeah.
Very little.
That cat had nothing to do with the Hanks family.
Really? Okay.
It was allergic to cats, so that cat was really cast on the power of its own iPhone audition.
All right, now, before we go, because they were signaling me, Rita, I have to congratulate you on Till You're Home, this song that is in this movie, which is, it's not just a song they throw in, you know, at the end. It has nothing to do with the movie. It is really beautifully written and plays to the themes of the film. You and your co-writer, David Hodges. So you worked that out, and you sing it beautifully with Sebastian Alatro, who did Encanto. I'm sure many of you saw.
Right. Well, it's been an incredible ride. I'm very thankful to Marc for asking me to write a song. We were in a pre-production meeting one day, and he said again, I think you should write a song for the movie. And I'm like, oh God, you know, like the songwriter in me is like doing cartwheels, you know. And he was familiar with my albums. I've been writing for about 10 years now. And David and I had written for another indie movie. And the producer in me was thinking, oh, this could be a disaster. Oh my gosh, what if he doesn't like it, you know? So we had a conversation, and I was very honored to be able to write it. And Marc knew where he wanted to use the song, so we had a very clear idea of the tone that he was looking for and what it would have to feel like. And I really, part of it was inspired by a conversation that I had with Mike Nichols when my dad died, and he said, the conversation continues. And I was like, what does that mean? And I realized that you still talk to the people that have passed, your loved ones, your friends, and you have conversations with them, and they're in your head, and you hear them back. So there was this idea that Otto was trying to, or perhaps there was a way that Otto was having a conversation with Sonia, and that it could be it could be either Sonia having a conversation with Otto or Otto having a conversation with Sonia. And it's used very specifically in the body of the film, sung by David Hodges, my co-writer, and then at the end, it's the more produced version that I sang with Sebastian Gatta. And as we were writing it and conceiving it, and I thought this could be sung by a man or a woman, when the idea hit me that it could be a duet, to me then it was as if Sonia was singing it to Otto, and that they were finally able to have that conversation in the afterlife. And in the middle of the night, I thought, who would be the perfect duet partner for this? And how can I bring Mariana, Marisol, and Tommy with Otto to the afterlife, let's say, to heaven? And I thought, what if it were somebody like Sebastian Yatra? And he loved the song, and he said he would do it. And then there was the scheduling, because we were really at the last minute, and he had one day that he could do it. It happened to be his day off in Los Angeles, and we went to the studio and recorded, and that's what you hear up there.
Really nice, yeah. And it's a music video out there on it now. You can check out on YouTube, I guess, everywhere.
Yeah, there's a video.
Well, it's funny you should say that, Pete, because I can't help, I'm sure a lot of us are wondering if there's any way at all we could perhaps say scan a QR code and if it would be part of it. That might be possible. I mean, we do have a social media influencer. Also, I can't help it, but don't we all want to have a little bit of reward for our love of movies, and maybe we can go to SonyRewards.com and get some details for the area.
That's right, and you can tell people in the mall here, because this is also playing in this theater as well, where you get to pay money to go see it too, and people are doing that. Thank you so much. And listen, guys, I'm going to let them go. They have to go, so they have to go up here. If you could just stay in your seats until they exit. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you, guys.